Automakers say they are engaged in a range war, adding energy storage capacity in order to win over electric vehicle customers concerned about how far they can drive their car or truck before needing to recharge. However, you can't just pile on batteries, as the additional storage can quickly add to the vehicle price and weight, Rivian Senior Director of Public Policy Chris Nevers said last week at the Novi Battery Show, outside of Detroit. The median range for new electric vehicle is around 250 miles and has been rising for years. The 2020 model year was the first in which an electric vehicle achieved an estimated maximum range of more than 400 miles, according to the U.S. Department of Energy. Consumers will need access to a variety of electric vehicle with different battery capacities and ranges in order to fully make the switch from internal combustion engine vehicles, automakers agreed at the Michigan Battery Conference last week. Consumers are always looking at a combination of attributes, price being always one of them, especially for vehicles, said Michael Matten, Director of Electric Vehicle Policy and Regulatory Affairs at General Motors. Roughly 300 miles of range is often considered a tipping point for customers to make the shift from an internal combustion engine to an electric vehicle. General Motors recently unveiled an electric 2024 Chevy Equinox, a mainstream crossover that can get 300 miles with certain specifications. Rivian, which focuses on trucks and off-road vehicles, offers its R1S with ranges that can exceed 320 miles. Despite similar ranges, the Equinox starts at $30,000 and the R1S at $78,000. A 300-mile truck battery has a lot more kilowatt-hours, a lot more energy storage, than a 300-mile Equinox battery, Matten said. It's not just the range. It's the energy capacity, said Carl Plattenberger, Chief Engineer of Powertrain and Thermal Systems at Mahindra Automotive North America. The company makes electric tractors. The utility companies are not just looking at this electric vehicle expansion as a demand they have to satisfy, Plattenberger said. It's also going to be critical with regard to sending energy back to the grid. Utilities are beginning to look beyond managed charging and demand response when it comes to electric vehicle to consider bidirectional flows of power and vehicle-to-grid applications to support the distribution system. New York City's first vehicle-to-grid charging system went live in August in Brooklyn. Longer-range vehicles will allow consumers to become electricity arbitrators, sending energy back to the grid when prices are high. Rivian's network of DC fast-charging stations, called the Rivian Adventure Network, is slowly but surely expanding with a new station this week. Other automakers should pay attention and possibly follow the same strategy. Last year, Rivian revealed its charging strategy, and we applauded them for a very thorough plan to address charging from all angles. We noted that the strategy was clearly inspired by Tesla, which is a good thing since it's hard to argue that anyone is doing fast charging better than Tesla at this point. While most automakers producing electric vehicles rely on third-party charging network operators, Rivian decided to build its own network to augment the third-party networks. Like Tesla, Rivian is building two networks. The first, a DC fast charging network called the Rivian Adventure Network, is the equivalent of Tesla's supercharger network. The second, the Rivian Waypoint Network, is a Level 2 charging network similar to Tesla's destination chargers. This gives Rivian more control over the charging experience, which has been a huge problem for basically every electric vehicle that is not a Tesla. We recently reported on a study that showed abysmal uptime at every charging network except Tesla's, mainly due to chargers being down. Besides Rivian's CEO RJ Scaringe, none of the other automaker CEOs seem to understand the value of owning the charging network. It's quite hard to deploy DC fast charging stations. There are a lot of things that need to align in order to deploy a single new station. You need to find the appropriate location with high power access, make a deal with the property owner, obtain the building permits, secure the charging equipment, find a contractor to install it, and finally have the local electric utility inspect and turn on the charger. Rivian announced the Adventure Network with 600 locations more than a year ago, and it just recently opened its first stations in June. A few months later, it still only has 6 stations in operation, with a new one opening in Barstow, California, this week. All of the stations in operation are in California except for one in Colorado. Rivian is focusing on locations that enable adventures and help Rivian owners in their long-distance travels. Rivian's network is growing slowly, but it is growing. Ultimately, I think this strategy is going to help Rivian since convenience stations are going to help convince buyers. The same happened with Tesla. Some buyers waited for stations that fit their habits to come online before pulling the trigger. While it likely won't pay off until the network grows significantly bigger, I think other automakers should already consider following in Rivian's footsteps. Rivian is also using the plug and charge standard for authenticating vehicles, which should allow it to charge other vehicles to use the network seamlessly. Interestingly, Rivian decided to make its network only for Rivian owners for now. It makes sense while it's small to maximize the benefit for their buyers. However, like Tesla is doing, I believe Rivian is also eventually going to open it up to all electric vehicle owners. That will be easy since the network uses the CCS standard. Rivian might open it up sooner rather than later in order to secure some government funding for electric vehicle chargers, which is only available for charging stations that are open to more than one automaker. Rivian and Mercedes-Benz are planning a joint venture to produce electric vans, including a new production line at a Mercedes facility in Europe. Rivian, the electric vehicle startup backed by Amazon, and Mercedes-Benz are forming a joint venture to make battery-powered vans in response to increasing demand for cleaner commercial vehicles. As part of the agreement, the companies will share investment costs to produce large electric vans that will be sold under both the Mercedes-Benz and Rivian brands. The joint venture company they're forming will also set up a factory in Europe at an existing Mercedes-Benz site within a few years. The factory will aim to build vehicles based on the electric vans both companies currently produce. The companies didn't share details of the cost and timing of their venture. We are sharing investments in technology because we also share the same strategic ambition, accelerating the electrification of the van market with sustainable and superior products, Matthias Geisen, who leads the Mercedes-Benz van unit, said in an emailed statement. The move comes as Rivian, which already supplies electric delivery vans to Amazon, works to scale up production after a rocky start this year owing to supply chain disruptions. The Irvine, California-based company, which also counts Ford as an investor, is the best-funded automotive startup in U.S. history. It saw its market cap surge after going public last year, becoming one of the world's most valuable automakers, before a slow production start triggered a stock sell-off earlier this year. The partnership with Mercedes gives Rivian added credibility in the European marketplace and should enable it to leverage Mercedes' established supply chain and manufacturing footprint in Europe, providing the OEM a shortcut to entering a new market with a very credible partner, Deutsche Bank equity analyst Emmanuel Rossner said in a research note. Production of R1T pickups and R1S SUVs at Rivian's Normal, Illinois, plant has improved this year, along with output of electric vans for Amazon. The company expects to build 25,000 vehicles this year. In December 2021 it also announced plans to build a second plant in Georgia, a $5 billion facility that will have capacity to produce 400,000 vehicles annually when it opens in 2024.